SCP-914 is one of the most renowned SCPs ever written, and for good reason. It's such a simple concept at its base. You put something in, you set a setting, and then an altered version of whatever you put in comes out, with the setting determining how the object is altered. That's all 914 really is, but considering that any object or animal or what have you would be changed by this machine, and the machine has the ability to create new SCPs, 914 becomes something you could ponder about for hours, just imagining all the things it could be capable of. It's no surprise then that SCP-914 was among the first SCPs added to Containment Breach, and it's also no surprise that using it was made almost integral to the game's progression. When 914 is put into an interactive setting with nearly any item strewn about the facility able to be used as input, the potential is nigh limitless. While the original Containment Breach developers admittedly didn't reach the maximum potential with 914, they still did a hell of a lot with it, and there are plenty of outputs from 914 that I'd bet a majority of players never knew about. So, let's talk about them. In this video, I will cover everything you would ever need or want to know about SCP-914 in Vanilla Containment Breach. I'll explain how SCP-914's programming works, which won't take much time as it is very simple. Because of that, I'll also go over every possible input and output from the machine. And while I'm at it, I might as well cover how every 914 exclusive item works. I want to clarify real quick that this will be how 914 works in the vanilla version of Containment Breach, not Ultimate Edition or any similar mod. I'll have to find some way to work Ultimate Edition into these videos in the future, but for now, all of the topics I cover will be for the vanilla game, since that's the version I'm most familiar with. With that out of the way, let's begin the... investigation! Like many things in Containment Breach, SCP-914 is controlled by a room event applied to its containment chamber. Upon opening the chamber doors for the first time, you're given the achievement for visiting 914, and an event status set that tells the game to play 914's ambient music while you're in the room. The event will then listen for your interactions with the knob and the key on the front of 914. The angle of the knob entity determines 914's setting, and once the key is turned far enough, the sound of 914 operating is played, a timer is started, and the door to 914's output booth is closed. I'm not even on the second page of the script yet, and there's already weird code here. SCP-914 will only start up if there are items dropped within a range around its chamber. The range it checks is massive, basically covering the entire map, so 914 will pretty much always work under normal circumstances. But if you make a custom map that only consists of 914's chamber, you can pick up all of the items inside the chamber, as well as Dr. Maynard's note in the pocket dimension, and see for yourself that 914 doesn't start up unless there's an item dropped on the ground. Why they felt the need to add this check, I have no idea. Anyway, while 914 is running, the setting knob is locked wherever it is, and so it cannot be changed mid-refinement. When the aforementioned timer hits 2 seconds, close the door to 914's input booth. If the player is standing inside the input booth when this happens, and 914 is set to rough or coarse, play this lovely sound. Reminds me of using one of those satisfying paper cutters. If the player is inside the input booth when the timer hits 3 seconds, and 914 is set to rough, set blink timer to a negative value to turn the screen black, stop 914's machine sound, and kill the player. If 914 is set to anything else, set blink timer to a negative value, play this sound, and wait. After 12 seconds, 914 creates and spawns the output of the given items/player in the output booth. Let's cover what happens to the player first. If 914 was set to coarse, set injuries to 4.0 and display this message. If set to 1:1, invert the camera movement on the Y-axis. This is accomplished by literally just toggling this setting in the options menu, which means you can just pause the game and turn it back off afterwards. If set to fine or very fine, give the player the Superman effect. This effect will boost movement speed by an enormous amount, but it will also shake the camera on occasion and kill the player after 50 seconds. Whichever of these effects is applied, the player is then teleported to the output booth and the blur timer is set to 1000 ticks, or about 15 seconds. And there you are, as a new person. Also, the input booth's range appears to extend very slightly outside the door to the booth, which means you can put yourself through 914 by just hugging the door from the outside. So that's great and all, but that's not what you're here for. What about items? After the event's timer reaches 12 seconds, and just before Refinement is run on the player, the event iterates through each dropped item, and if the item is inside of 914's input booth, it calls Use 914 on the item. Yes, the player's Refinement is handled in the event's code, and not this function. Why? Welcome to Containment Breach's source code! Use 914 will start by incrementing the count of how many items you've refined in 914, which is shown at the game's ending. Then, it uses a massive nested switch case statement to check the name of the item and 914's setting, to see which output it needs to spawn. Spawning the output involves either creating a new item, decal, or sometimes NPC in the output booth, and deleting the item in the input booth right after. But if the combination of input and setting doesn't change the item in any way, then it's usually just teleported to the output booth. After Use 914 is called on each input item, and the player's refinement process is run, if applicable, the doors open and the event concludes. It then waits for you to pull the key once more, so it can start the process all over again. And that's basically 914's programming. Told you it'd be quick. But I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to explore each input and output that is possible from SCP-914. Yes, the wiki does have a giant table of this exact info already, but there are a few weird things about some of the outputs the wiki's table doesn't cover, and I'll also be explaining how each 914 exclusive item works in detail, so at least some of this info should be new. Let's waste no further time and jump into the deep end. First of all, if the input item is not checked for anywhere within the switch case of doom, it'll be moved to the output booth with no effect, no matter the setting. Yes, this even means that rough or coarse will not destroy the item. I'm not sure if that was intentional, but it's a thing. Speaking of rough and coarse, I'll start by covering what those settings do for the majority of items, because it's mostly the same thing. Destroy the input item by spawning a decal of black soot in the output booth. Soot might not be the right word, but I don't know what else that is, so that's what I'm going with. The size of the soot decal does change depending on the size of the input item, but that's the most interesting thing there is to cover here. Because almost every single input item in 914 turns into soot when put through on rough or coarse, I will only mention rough or coarse if they do anything different to this. With that cleared up, let's finally get to the list of inputs. Starting off with the gas mask. 1-to-1 has no effect on the item, but fine or very fine will spawn the super gas mask. Wearing the super gas mask gives this message, and provides you with semi-unlimited stamina. How the stamina buff works is that the game has decremented stamina like normal on the previous frame, but on the next frame, stamina is boosted by 100 minus itself times 0.01, before being decremented as usual later. Eventually, the stamina boost cancels out the stamina loss, which is what makes the stamina unlimited. In short, the stamina drain per frame will decrease the lower your stamina is, until it stops draining altogether. This effect can be negated by a really bad stamina debuff, which will power through the super gas mask and cause you to run out of stamina anyway. This is because the stamina boost doesn't take stamina effect into account, so if stamina effect is high enough, the stamina decrease will outweigh the stamina boost on each frame, which allows you to hit 0 stamina. Fortunately, the only way you're getting a stamina debuff that bad is from an SCP-294 Drink. The 966s aren't that powerful. The final note I want to make is that the code that boosts your stamina with a super gas mask or super hazmat suit is located inside the function mouse look. Freaking mouse look? Up next is SCP-1499. 1-to-1 spawns an ordinary gas mask, and thus destroys the SCP and changes canon forever. Fine spawns the Super SCP-1499, which gives the Super Gas Mask's infinite stamina effect while inside the 1499 dimension. That's all that changes. Very Fine will spawn an instance of SCP-1499-1 inside the facility. This instance has its state set to 1, which means it constantly chases you. At least it tries to. These guys don't have any kind of pathfinding, since the dimension they come from is flat and open, so it's very easy to get this enemy stuck on a wall or door. However, if it does have a straight path to you, it is quite fast. What's weird is how after I ran it around the light containment zone for a bit in this footage, it eventually vanished and never appeared again. I'm not sure why that happened. Anyway, back to 914. The Ballistic Vest on 1-1 has no effect. On Fine, it spawns the Heavy Ballistic Vest, which I went over in my previous video on the game's health system. It subtracts 1 from the value of SCP-939's bite damage, and it thoroughly protects you from being killed by gunshots. It doesn't protect you much from the gunshot's damage, due to how fast the Nine-Tailed Fox shoot, but if being killed by them is your concern, this thing will really help you. The Heavy Ballistic Vest also makes a good showcase for an odd quirk of the Use 914 function. Since the Switch Case of Doom looks for the item's display names, which are the names shown in the inventory screen, this allows for multiple items to be treated as the same input item, as long as they have the same name. This is the case for the Super Gas Mask. Even though it is a different item from the normal gas mask, it's a valid input for 914 because its display name is still just Gas Mask, which is what the Switch Case is looking for. This is where the Heavy Ballistic Vest runs into trouble, because its display name is actually Heavy Ballistic Vest. But Use 914 only checks for Ballistic Vest as an input. This means that the Heavy Ballistic Vest is not a valid input item for SCP-914, so putting it through on any setting will have no effect. Once it's heavy, it stays heavy. Putting a standard ballistic vest through Very Fine gives the Bulky Ballistic Vest, which is a vest so powerful that you can't even wear it, or move it for that matter. The only way we know it's called Bulky Ballistic Vest is because you can spawn it via console commands, and you can also read the code. So Very Fine essentially wastes your vest. There's only 2 ballistic vests in the game, so be careful with what setting you use on them. The Clipboard leaves behind a shredded paper decal on rougher course, whether or not it had items on it. If it did have papers or keycards on it, all of those items are destroyed along with it. 1-1 has no effect, Fine gives the Clipboard 15 inventory slots, and Very Fine gives it 20 inventory slots. This is actually accomplished by directly editing the Clipboard's inventory slots and then moving it. It does not spawn a new one. Nothing much else to say here, though. Next, we have the Cowbell. Wait, what? The Use 914 function looks for an item with the display name Cowbell, but no such item exists. All it would have done is be destroyed or move itself to the output booth with no effect, so this appears to be the remnant of an item that was cut extremely early in its conception. Perhaps a 1-1 output for SCP-513? Perhaps an alternate name for 513? Whatever it is, this is the only time that this Cowbell item is mentioned anywhere in the game's code. So there's at least one new 914 fact for you. What's actually next are the night vision goggles. 1-1 has no effect, Fine gives them unlimited battery and also changes their color to red, which, not gonna lie, is a lot less pleasant to look at than the green. And Very Fine turns them blue, along with granting them the ability to track entities. Every NPC in Containment Breach is given an NV name, which is their name as displayed on the blue goggles' screen. The entity names and their distances from you do not move or change along with the entity, and are only revealed to you as a snapshot of their positions at a particular time, which is updated every 10 seconds or so. The goggles will temporarily blink when the data is updated, and this does count as blinking for SCP-173, so you'll have to manage 2 blink meters while wearing these. On top of that, these goggles still have limited battery, but they at least make up for that by allowing you to last slightly longer while wearing them in front of SCP-895 than the normal goggles would. Hey, at least it gives a unique death message. That's cool, right? The only remaining fun fact I have for the blue goggles is that some NPCs will be labeled as unidentified in the goggles, which includes the beast in SCP-860-1. Since this beast has no actual SCP designation, the goggles don't know what to call it. This shows that, in creating these goggles, SCP-914 was taking the intel from the SCP Foundation to give the proper labels to the entities, which I think is a neat touch, even if unintended. Next is the Metal Panel, or SCP-148. Rough and Coarse turn it into the SCP-148 ingot, which can then be combined with the gas mask, ballistic vest, or hazmat suit to upgrade said items. The metal panel will also work in place of the ingot, though it didn't seem to work as consistently for me. If the 148 ingot is put through by itself on 1-to-1 fine or very fine, it'll turn back into the metal panel. The metal panel itself has no effect when put through on these settings. If the 148 ingot or metal panel is placed close enough to a gas mask, ballistic vest, or hazmat suit, then 1-to-1, fine, or very fine will spawn the heavy gas mask, heavy ballistic vest, or the heavy hazmat suit in output, at the cost of the 148 ingot/panel. Starting with the heavy ballistic vest, it's the exact same heavy ballistic vest that you get for putting the normal vest in on fine without the ingots. Yippee! The heavy gas mask is more interesting, as it grants protection against SCP-012, SCP-895, SCP-966's debuff, and it also blocks the whispering noises inside SCP-035's chamber, along with the sanity drain that chamber also causes. Not that that's any help, since you have to go to 035's chamber to get the 148 ingot in the first place, but it's there. The heavy gas mask does not provide infinite stamina, however, so it's a bit of a trade-off. The heavy hazmat suit is basically the same as the heavy gas mask, but now the hazmat suit's 60 stamina cap is removed, and SCP-049 is completely unable to kill you while you're wearing it. Normally, he can take the hazmat suit off after a few seconds of contact, but here, he's helpless. It also provides the added protection against the damage from 035's chamber and the tentacles, plus the damage and infection from SCP-008's chamber, just like the other hazmat suits do. The drawback is that the hazmat suit is a pain in the rear to bring around the facility, and you will never get any use out of its heavy version as a result. But still, it's there. The heavy gas mask is the most useful of these three outputs, since blocking 966's debuff can be really helpful. But most of the other things you're protected from can easily be circumvented anyway. So, make your choice. Protection against a couple of threats that are easily avoided, and one that is very dangerous but can also be evaded with other methods, like SCP-714, or unlimited stamina. In a game where stamina plummets faster than my high school grades. I know which one I'm going with. The two severed hands spawn a blood splat decal on rough or coarse, and switch to the other severed hand on 1-to-1, fine, or very fine. For a quick reminder, the white severed hand opens this door in the large testing room for quicker traversal, and it also opens the door inside SCP-079's chamber, which unlocks access to some lore. Meanwhile, the black severed hand opens the door in the room leading to SCP-049's chamber, which skips having to pass through his chamber to get through the room. Make sure you have the severed hand you'll want the most on you at all times. Here we get into some repeat information from the last video. First aid kits, or blue first aid kits on 1-to-1 will either have no effect, or spawn the opposite first aid kit, decided on a coin flip. Blue first aid kits will do the same healing process as a normal first aid kit, but then they add one of 6 additional effects. The effects are applying the Superman buff, which still kills you, inverting Y-axis mouse movement, blurring your vision for around 70 seconds, decreasing the blink meter's decay by 40% for 20 to 30 seconds, fully healing you, or applying heavy damage by setting injuries to 3.5. Each of these effects has a custom message except for the blink buff, which will just show a normal medkit's message instead. Blue medkits could potentially be great healing items if you want to reload saves repeatedly until you get the full heal, but if you're looking for consistency, I would recommend First Aid Kit's fine output, the small First Aid Kit. This will heal your injuries by 2 and reset your blood loss to 0, which is way better than the standard First Aid Kit's healing ability. For more information, check out my video on the game's health system. I'm so glad I get to say stuff like that now, you have no idea. Lastly is the First Aid Kit's very fine output, the Strange Bottle. The Strange Bottle will do one of 5 things upon use. Apply heavy damage by setting injuries to 3.5, fully heal you, heal injuries and blood loss by an extremely varying amount, blur your vision for around 142 seconds, and also restore blood loss for some reason, or teleport you to SCP-106's Pocket Dimension. But if you're in Gate A or B when the Pocket Dimension effect is rolled, it will instead apply heavy damage by setting injuries to 2.5, not 3.5 like the other effect. Once again, it's a great healing item if you load saves, but not so great if you don't want to. We now move on to keycards. The main reason you ever use 914 in the game is to upgrade a level 2 keycard to a level 3, so you can get into the heavy containment zone. But how come 914 can't go higher? Well, it can, but it's not likely to. Almost any keycard upgrade has a chance of giving you a useless Mastercard or sometimes playing card instead. There's a number of factors that determine a keycard's output, so let me stop beating around the bush and uncover the details. First of all, any keycard on 1-to-1 will give a playing card, and Very Fine will roll the chance for a keycard Omni, which I'll cover later. The keycard's fine output will attempt to upgrade the input keycard to the next level, with the chances of success dependent on the input keycard's level, as well as the other difficulty factors setting for that playthrough. A level 1 keycard has the following chances of upgrade. If other difficulty factors is easy, a level 2 keycard is guaranteed. If other difficulty factors is normal, there is a 1 in 5 chance that a Mastercard is spawned instead. And if it's hard, the chance for a Mastercard goes up to 1 in 4. If a level 2 keycard is input, easy guarantees a level 3, normal adds a 1 in 4 chance for a Mastercard, and hard makes the chance 1 in 3. If a level 3 is input, the chances of getting a level 4 are a lot more slim. Easy gives a 1 in 10 chance to spawn a level 4, otherwise spawn a playing card. Normal lowers the chance to a 1 in 15, and hard lowers it to 1 in 20. If a level 4 is input, the chances for a level 5 return to being very high. Easy guarantees a level 5, normal adds a 1 in 4 chance for a Mastercard, and hard boosts it to 1 in 3. It's interesting to see how level 4s were made much harder to get, as a way of enforcing the game's main progression as the easiest way forward. You're only meant to get up to a level 3 from 914, where you then take it to heavy containment, where you can find the level 4 and 5 keycards somewhere inside. You could get a level 4 right here, but you'd have to grind for it, and with 106 poking his head out of the ground every 5 minutes, this is not the best option to take. However, if you do get a level 4, the game accepts defeat and makes getting a level 5 easier, since there's no longer any point in resisting you. This also reveals a secondary option in the main progression path. While I assumed visiting 106's chamber was required to get the level 5 keycard inside, it turns out you can just bring the level 4 from 049's chamber back to 914 and turn it into a level 5. I like how there's multiple ways to follow the main progression like this. It keeps the game as replayable as ever. But I'm sure you want me to get to the Omni keycard already, so let's do it. Putting a level 5 keycard through on Fine, or any keycard on Very Fine, will have a chance of giving you an Omni keycard, and the chances are the same no matter which of those inputs you choose. You might already know that the chance for an Omni is based on how many achievements you've unlocked, but how is this actually calculated? Behold the great Omni formula! The total number of achievements minus 1 times X subtracted by the number of achievements you've unlocked minus 1 times 3. In Vanilla Containment Breach, there are 37 achievements in total, and X is equal to either 3, 4, or 5, depending on the other difficulty factors setting. The result of this calculation is used as the upper bound for an RNG call, which rolls a number from a range of 0 up to the number we just calculated. If the random number is 0, you get an Omni keycard. Otherwise, you get a Mastercard. In short, a level 5 on Fine or any keycard on Very Fine has a 1 in this number chance of giving you an Omni keycard instead of a Mastercard. Here's some pre-calculated chances. The minimum number of achievements you can have when trying your luck at an Omni is 1 achievement for entering 914's chamber. With 1 achievement unlocked, the chance for an Omni is 1 in 108 if other difficulty factors is easy, 1 in 144 on normal, and 1 in 180 on hard. The maximum number of achievements you can have without the Omni achievement is 33, since 3 of the game's achievements are only given when the game ends. With 33 achievements, the chance for an Omni is 1 in 9 on easy, 1 in 12 on normal, and 1 in 15 on hard. A significant boost, but getting your chances that high requires completing most of the game. So surely the Omni keycard is an extremely useful item that unlocks something super secret or maybe even gives you a special ending, right? Nope. It's just a reskinned level 5. All it does differently is give you an achievement when you pick it up. Whoopee. The final note about the keycard input is that the game also checks for the display name keycard, even though no keycard exists with that name. Putting the Omni keycard back through 914 on 1-to-1 will give either a Mastercard or a playing card. Fine and Very Fine have no effect, although they do spawn a new Omni in the output rather than just move the input Omni there, so there's that, I guess. A playing card, coin, or quarter, yes, there is a difference between those two items, will give a level 1 keycard on 1-to-1 or a level 2 keycard on Fine or Very Fine. A Mastercard gives those same outputs, but also adds the output of 4 quarters if put through on Course. And since quarters can be turned into keycards, which can then be turned into Mastercards, this means you can get as many quarters as you want, and thus as many 294 drinks as you want. Go nuts! Any S-NAV navigator will spawn electronical components on rougher course. This is a junk item that doesn't do anything, but at least it's different from soot. On 1-to-1, you get the S-NAV with no number, which has a red border and a red arrow on its screen, rather than the usual black. The facility rooms are still black, however. On Fine, you'll get the S-NAV 310, which shows every room in the facility even if you haven't been there, unlike the default S-NAV. Very Fine gives the S-NAV Ultimate, which requires no battery and also highlights the distance of certain SCPs with a red circle. Specifically, it shows SCP-173, 106, 049, 096, and 895. The closer the SCP is to you, the smaller the circle gets. Strangely, while most of the circles close in gradually, 173's circle only has 3 different sizes that it snaps between. When displaying the red circles, the game uses the distance between the SCP's entity and the player to determine the size of the circles. For most SCPs, the entity distance is used directly, but for 173, the entity distance is divided by 8, rounded up to the nearest whole number, and then multiplied by 8, which is what causes it to appear in only 3 sizes. Why is this the case? I don't know, it's just what they felt like doing. The radio transceiver will also turn it into electronical components on rougher course. On 1-to-1, it spawns a radio that only accepts 18-volt batteries. This is the only difference between it and the standard radio. On Fine, it spawns a special radio that doesn't need batteries. On Very Fine, it spawns a weird radio that doesn't seem to work. The text on the screen is all garbled and it just makes beeping noises. However, most of you probably know that these beeps spell out the code to Dr. Maynard's office, which is one of the ways you can obtain that code. For each digit of the code, it will beep a number of times equal to that digit, then pause for a second before moving on to the next digit. Here's a fun fact for you all. If you're having an immense amount of trouble finding 372's chamber, but you've found a radio, you can actually use the weird radio to get the code for the maintenance tunnel's door. Containment Breach has 4 different passcodes that you can put into doors. 2 of them are always the same codes, while the other 2 are randomized. However, the game only stores 1 random code internally, specifically the code to Dr. Maynard's office. The maintenance tunnel's code is then generated based off of Maynard's code. It is Maynard's code times 3 mod 10,000. So you can find the maintenance tunnel's door code by listening to the weird radio beeps, multiplying the code you hear by 3, and then doing mod 10,000 on it. It's not super useful, but I thought you might like to know. The final thing to say about the weird radio is that it is technically on channel 1 of the standard radio, so if you have any custom radio music in the game files, it will play that music as you're listening to the beeps. SCP-513 has no effect on 1-to-1 Fine or Very Fine. On rougher course, however, it will be destroyed and SCP-513-1 will be despawned, if he was spawned. This will also play a special noise that sounds like 914 destroying the Cowbell mid-process, even though the sound doesn't play until after 914 is done running, but whatever. SCP-420-J, or a cigarette, will give nothing. On any setting. Hold on, what? There's definitely supposed to be outputs. Let's check around with NoClip. So, why the hell is it out there? Well, this is why. Yeah, those numbers aren't supposed to be there. Those coordinates are the center of 914's output booth, and these items specifically, for a reason I am unable to comprehend, were given a hard-coded offset. An offset so large that the item spawns way outside of the output booth. Since these are direct edits to coordinates, where the output item spawns will depend on the orientation of 914's chamber. Spawning outside the map like this happens if the room is facing south. If it's facing north, it'll be outside the booth to the left, and if it's facing east or west, it'll be over here next to the shelves. So yeah, if 914's chamber is facing south, all of the outputs from SCP-420J are unobtainable. Any other direction and you should be good, as long as you've got good hunting instincts. 420J on 1-to-1 gives a cigarette, which is supposed to display one of these 6 messages on its first use, but it appears to be bugged and always shows you are unable to get lit. Unless you load the save, in which... Anyway, the cigarette doesn't do anything. 420J on fine gives a joint, and very fine gives a smelly joint, which both kill you upon use. And apparently the map is de-rendered in the process, or at least that's how this footage shows it. I suppose it is appropriate that the funny weed item would be this messed up in its functionality. A 9-volt battery on 1-to-1 spawns an 18-volt battery, which can only be used in the special 18-volt battery accepting radio. It has no differences from the 9-volt. Fine or very fine spawns the strange battery, which upon being picked up, kills you. It will actually go into your inventory though, so you can catch a glimpse of its name by repeatedly opening the inventory while dying. And of course you can pick it up safely if you're in God mode. Revision eyedrops on 1-to-1 spawn the red vision eyedrops, which work identically to the normal ones. Fine spawns the eyedrops, which gives a 60% reduction in blink meter decay compared to the normal 40%, and for a longer duration. We also can't forget that it heals blood loss by the derivative of X. Very fine spawns another eyedrops, but this one will set 142 seconds to the eye stuck timer, which prevents your blink meter from draining during the cooldown. Your vision will also grow increasingly blurry and even darken all the way to black, but this is not counted as blinking for 173, so you really are able to stare at it for all that time. After time is up, the blink meter starts moving again and your vision is blurred for a very long time. As long as you can deal with the blurry vision, this item could actually be useful, despite how strange it is. The Hazmat suit will spawn a regular Hazmat suit on 1-to-1 and spawn the Super Hazmat suit on fine or very fine. The Super Hazmat suit gives the same unlimited stamina buff as the Super Gas Mask. The reason why I specified that 1-to-1 spawns a regular Hazmat suit is because this means you can un-upgrade the Super Hazmat suit by putting it through on 1-to-1, just in case you wanted to. Now it's Syringe time! These things almost have an upgrade tree of sorts, having the most possible outputs of anything in the game. A standard syringe will spawn a small first aid kit on 1-to-1, spawn a fine syringe on fine, and spawn a very fine syringe on very fine. While the stamina effect given by the standard syringes is 0.5, fine syringes give a random effect from 0.5 to 0.8, which means that they will most often give worse stamina buffs than the normal syringes. They will also set the heal timer for a longer or shorter duration than normal, and as mentioned in the health system video, heal timer heals your injuries over time while simultaneously accumulating your blood loss, meaning using syringes while high on blood loss can kill you. A lot of people commented that this might be a way to represent some kind of overdose mechanic, and I think I can agree, though it's certainly a strange way to implement it. Anyway, the fine syringe can be put back into 914, and it will spawn a normal first aid kit if put through on course. It's like the developers knew how bad the normal first aid kits are. On 1-to-1, it spawns a blue first aid kit, and fine or very fine spawns a very fine syringe. The very fine syringe will do one of 3 things. Give you the Superman buff, which, yes, still kills you, make you vomit after 30 seconds, or act like the other syringes, but with a large stamina buff and a large heal timer duration. The very fine syringe can also be put through 914, in which case, it spawns electronical components on every setting besides very fine, and on very fine, it spawns an SCP-008 zombie. This zombie appears to be unable to leave 914's chamber for whatever reason. Otherwise, it's the same as the one in the medical bay. That's a total of 7 outputs for this random item that there's only 2 of in the vanilla game, and no one would ever consider bringing back to 914. The syringes sure are something. We're on the home stretch now. SCP-500-1 turns into a pill on 1-1, which does nothing. On fine, it turns into SCP-427, but only if 427 doesn't already exist somewhere on the map. SCP-427 will slowly heal injuries, blood loss, and SCP-008's infection while it's opened. However, it also increments a timer that will kill you if it reaches 6 minutes. Well, okay, it actually kills you at 7 minutes, but the 6-minute mark makes the timer unable to be paused, so I consider that the threshold for death. The timer cannot be reset, so you can only use 427 for 6 minutes total before it kills you. The 500 pill on fine, if 427 already exists, or very fine, will spawn the upgraded pill. Upon use, this will set 427's danger timer to the 6-minute mark right away, essentially killing you. It doesn't provide any heals in the process, so best not to use it. It is at this point where the switch case of doom calls upon its default case, which has another switch case that now checks for the input item's internal name. This may seem weird, and it is, but there is a good reason for it. These last 2 input items are actually 2 large groups of items, namely any SCP-294 Drink and any document. The outputs for 294 Drinks are strange, to say the least. 1-1 is supposed to invert the color of the liquid, while fine and very fine are supposed to randomize the color values, but in each case, the liquid always comes out black. My guess is that the liquid's color values are locked in place once the item is created, thus trying to edit them afterwards, which the code tries to do, has no effect. It'd probably be better to prepare the new RGB values first, then spawn the new drink with those values taken in, but that's just my assumption. Either way, the color change actually isn't permanent, because saving and loading will change the drink's color back to what it was before. Not sure why that happens. So, no matter the setting, putting a drink through 914 always turns the liquid's color black until you load a save. 1-1 gives no additional effect. Fine will set the drink's state value to 1.0. Very fine will double the drink's state value, or set it to 2.0 at minimum. When the drink is used, the state value is increased by 1, then multiplied to the values of blink effect timer, stamina effect, and stamina effect timer. If these values are left unspecified in the drink's data, then the default values for each are 1. This means that 914 will add very brief blink/stamina debuffs to a 294 drink that has none specified. And if it does have one specified, it will intensify the strength of the debuff and increase its duration. If the drink has a blink/stamina buff instead, 914 ends up turning it into a debuff due to how the multiplication works. Unless, of course, the blink or stamina effect is 0, then it won't change. Even though the state value could theoretically be increased as much as you want through very fine, it didn't seem to go any higher than 2 or 4 or whatever when I was testing it. If this all sounds complicated, that's because it is. In short, if a 294 drink has no effect on your blink or stamina meters, fine or very fine will create a very brief debuff upon drinking it. If the 294 drink had a buff, it'll be turned into a debuff and given a longer duration. And if the 294 drink had a debuff, the debuff will be intensified and given a longer duration. On top of that, very fine rolls a 1 in 5 chance of the drink exploding. So the only reason you would want to put a 294 drink through 914 is if it has a blink or stamina effect of 0, like the Cup of Sanic. That way, you'd get a longer duration while keeping the buff intact. Otherwise, it's best to steer clear of all this. Finally, the documents. Rough and coarse give a shredded paper decal. 1-1 will give one of these SCP documents at random: 173, 106, 079, 895, 682, or 860. If you want any other SCP documents, you'll have to consult SCP-1162. Finally! Fine or very fine will spawn origami. This item does nothing, it's just there to look cute. The only document that isn't included in this group is the disciplinary hearing you can get from the aforementioned SCP-1162. It uses a different internal name, Old Paper, which is not searched for by 914, so putting this through 914 has no effect. The same goes for all the badges and even the movie ticket. Even though they act like documents, they do not have the internal name paper, so 914 will not accept them. Every other document should work just fine. And that wraps up every possible input and output from SCP-914. Any remaining item will have no effect when put through 914 on any setting, including rough or coarse. Here's a full list of every non-refinable item in the game. In vanilla, of course. Some of these are actually 914 exclusive items, which aren't properly checked for if you put them back through the machine, such as the heavy ballistic vest. Additionally, entities other than the player cannot go through 914 at all. They'll be stuck inside the input booth for a while, but nothing else will happen, and they'll be freed once it opens. To close the video, I have one last fact to share, one whose existence is a mystery even to me. Sometimes, when the key to SCP-914 is pulled and the machine is started, items dropped inside of 914's chamber can vanish, as if they're being deleted. This happened to me on at least 2 different occasions, and even happened in my playthrough of the game from last year. I thought it was a feature of 914 that if there's too many items around, it gets rid of some to clear space in memory or whatever. But nowhere in 914's code does it try to delete items that aren't in the input booth. And the items in the input booth are only deleted as the refinement process comes to an end, not when the key is pulled. My only guess is that it has something to do with the weird check that there must be items dropped in the facility before 914 will activate. Maybe as it iterates through each item to check their distance from the chamber, it sees some of them as faulty and deletes them? Or maybe this is just a symptom of some larger glitch? What's even weirder is how it never happened a single time while I recorded this video's footage, even though I had so many items piled up in the room by the end. I have no idea what causes this, but it's good to know that this can happen. It seems to only affect items dropped in 914's chamber, as items dropped elsewhere in the facility were always okay whenever it happened to me, but still, beware of dropping any important items in or around 914's chamber. They may not be as safe as you think. That is every fact that I know about SCP-914. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you learned something new in the process. SCP Containment Breach is such a unique game, and I don't wish for its janky mysteries to remain mysteries forever. I'm learning new stuff about this game all the time, just as you are, I assume. So I really hope you'll join me in my adventure to bring this game's weird mechanics into the limelight. Before I truly end the video, I would like to gather opinions on something. These Containment Breach Explained videos are obviously going to be a series at this point, and I'd like to give this series a catchy name to let it stand out from my other content. The problem is that I'm terrible at coming up with names, so I'd like to ask you all for suggestions. I want the name to be something along the lines of Illusory Wall's Dark Souls Dissected series, though I don't want to use Dissected because it would sound like I'm copying him. One of my dumber name ideas was SCP Containment Breached, like, knowledge of the code has breached, but the name wouldn't give a great idea of what the series is actually about, so I don't think I'm going to go with that one. If you have any ideas for this series' name, I'd love to hear them down below. I'd also love to hear any suggestions for what to cover next. I'm currently thinking of explaining the random map generation or SCP-173's behavior for the next video, and I might also throw in a miscellaneous fun facts video in there as well. Either way, whatever I choose to do next, I hope the wait will be worth it for you all. Thank you all so much for watching, if you did, and as always, I will see you all in the future.